Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. I'm here today with JJ and Desiree Hurtak for a very special broadcast, which is really about our new adventures in space, really about a new time that we are heading into. So, JJ, why don't you talk about why this is such an important day in the history of humanity?
It's a new day because space is being democratized. The great leadership of Richard Branson has made it clear to all of us that the portals of space are now being opened. And we're here not too far away, a little bit more than 100 miles from the spaceport, where the Academy for Future Science has property. And we've been following this story for many decades. In fact, it's interesting that the great work of Virgin Galactic brought the attention of world society to the very edge of space, what is called suborbital experiences of outer space, where you can begin to see the curvature of Mother Earth.
And I just want to say this is July 11th, 2021, for those who are watching later. And we just saw the takeoff and landing of really Richard Branson into suborbital location. So
let me see if I could actually bring up that video. Because I mean, it was historic, I guess, as far as commercial flights, but you know, it's still, if you think about UFOs and what we've been talking about, it's still very primitive propulsion systems that they are using, right?
Yeah, but what's interesting is the location, of course. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, is literally about 200 miles to the west, which isn't very far from Roswell, and about 70 miles south, Truth or Consequences, 70 miles south of Socorro, one of the other amazing things. But let's take a look. Really, this is Virgin Galactic.
Virgin Galactic. This is how it got into space. It was taken aboard because they figured it takes so much rocket fuel just to get it out of our atmosphere that Branson designed these two planes that would guide the, I guess what are they calling it? Unity 22 into the kind of a sub-region of space. And then this is the moment when those airplanes let that ship go. So here it is.
Right. So this is the mothership that's going off.
They call it Eve, and they're going to go back to the ship. And this is the first commercial, Branson himself on board. And this is the moment right around here where they're going to let that ship free. And it is the first commercial flight, I guess, outside of government into space. There's 4 crew members on board there. Branson
and two pilots,
and
they've done this before.
And somewhere around here, they let
about 47,000 feet, almost 48,000 feet. They jettisoned this rocket, so it was going.
There it is. So they let that ship go. It ignited its own ignition, and then it flew, I guess, 100,000 feet. It went to Mach 3. What is Mach? What does that measure, JJ? Mach?
Well, this is the calculation of going faster than the speed of sound. They went to Mach 1 and then Mach 2, Mach 3.
Right. So the airplane was going about 0.5 Mach. And by the time the rocket really soared and went into what's called suborbital, where they could have weightlessness, it was actually up to, over 2 point. Actually, it was about 2 Mach to get to that. So that was,
well, they did look, you could see on the calculator on the side here that they're over 100,000 feet. That's twice as high as commercial jets fly, or maybe 3 times as high. And they're already at Mach 3 as they ignited their engine and went into where you become weightless in space. And they were really only there for, I guess, about 10 or 20.
No, 3 minutes.
Only 3 minutes.
Extremely
short. I guess time goes by when you're floating in space.
And really, and they started really going down to the Mach 3 when they started going down already. And it was a perfect.
Well, Well, they piloted it down. They need to pilot it down. There were 2 pilots on board. But in a way, it's baby steps. If you look at what the UFO technology that we've been studying, and there is no propulsion system, they're still using fossil fuel propulsion. I mean, we have not graduated to another level of technology. What do you have to say about that, JJ?
Well, some would say it's a publicity stunt of Sir Richard Branson. Others would say no. He has put close to $1 billion into opening, as it were, the commercial world to something that's going to be very important for the sociology of what we're going to see in the next 20 years as we graduate from humankind to space guide. According to my work with the Keys of Enoch, we are beginning to understand our orientation towards building a city in space, becoming space citizens, and beyond the solar system. Really, the
But
blue sky is open.
it's a charade when we figure that we have technology at Area 51, some of the crash retrieval UFO ships that have already developed other types of propulsion systems that are more based on quantum physics, not Newtonian physics.
We agree with you wholeheartedly, Alan, but the main thing is this is really the first, we'll say, business flight where
Yes.
now there's 600 people already registered who gave their $250,000 to Virgin Galactic to start going up into space to have the same experience. So this is pretty exciting. And then, of course, one of the reasons he did it on July 11th is because on July 20th, Jeff Bezos, formerly of Amazon, is putting up his Blue Origin that will go up from West Horn, Texas. And so that's really kind of going to be another place where people are going to go up from. And then these are all suborbital flights. So as you said, it really, I mean, 3 minutes, you're paying $250,000 to go 3 minutes in some sort of weightlessness. Hopefully they'll expand that to 5. I think they want to. But then ultimately, Elon Musk is going to be taking the orbital people who are civilians up into the space station. He now has permission to do that. So he's going to go into orbital. And in addition to Virgin Galactic, there is something called Virgin Orbital. And so Branson is working on taking people out into orbit where they'll actually go around the entire Earth. That's going to take longer, but it's kind of exciting.
Well, it's exciting in the light of disclosure in a way, but it's also a distraction from what we already know. I think this is diverting I don't think they're consciously doing it, but it seems like, oh, wow, we can go into space. And there have been visitors here from space for probably hundreds of years. So there's these 2 parallel realities we're looking at. Wow, commercial space flight for 3 minutes, or let's develop technology that can really take us out there.
Well, maybe this is getting everyone orientated, because if you listen to Haim Eshed, he said the ETs themselves don't think we're ready. And I think, of course, has to do more with war and our violence, but technically it also has to do with our consciousness, whether we're really, understanding that we are cosmic beings. And that's really the next step. But again, the location that both Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin took is really about 200 miles each. One's west and the other one is south of Roswell. So they've done an amazing thing by locating themselves in these locations.
Well, the spaceport was built in this area because of the high level of UFO activity, and that's why we've been here for many years. In fact, over 40 some years ago, I was here with engineers and people who had worked with General Nathan Twining, who allegedly was aware on top secret levels of extraterrestrial wreckage that had been retrieved from Aztec, New Mexico, and as well as the area called the Plains of Augustine, areas north of Socorro, where we have privately investigated and published indirectly a report in your book, Chapter 3, of the alien bodies that were examined and retrieved from this area back in the 1940s.
And the Socorro has this large array telescope very close to there. And also Zamora in 1964. Lenny Zamora actually was able to see while he was chasing some kids that
an egg-shaped vehicle came down.
And 2 beings got out. So that's only 70 miles north of Truth or Consequences. So,
No, that was a historic case, the Lonnie Samora case. It actually got J. Allen Hynek involved in the whole phenomena. And it's interesting, in New Mexico seems to be the sites, and also the atomic bomb. And also Roswell. It was 74 years ago, pretty much a couple of days ago. Next year will be the 75th anniversary. And we are hoping to do a big celebration somewhere for that. And it's also around the time of the moon landing. 1969 was July 20th. So lots of moments in space history happened there. But we need to graduate from fossil fuels. I mean, why don't these intelligent people know that there's other technologies? And why is, you see, if the government would come forward and share what they know, we would not be celebrating this commercial flight. This is, space is not about being commercial anyway, right?
Well, let's talk about this because head of NASA right now is a man named Bill Nelson, who is also connected with the astronaut program. And he recently, just last week, came out and said, you know, I do believe that extraterrestrials exist. Now, at the same time, you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson who say that even when people saw things at the Navy and that Captain Faber was flying around and watching this UFO, it was just a bleep on the radar screen that was incorrect. I mean, people actually physically saw this. So we're still kind of in this dialectic.
So let's put this back in a historic context, Alan, if I can just jump in here.
Yes.
I work with astronaut Cory Cooper in his book, Leap of Faith. He mentions really the confusion of bringing forth critical information. His partner, Walt Schirra, was the person who was the first guy on the suborbital level of outer space. And so there's a long history that goes back to the 1960s, where the astronauts were aware of alien technology. And in this book, Leap of Faith, and in our work with Cory Cooper, he admits that there were hundreds of spaceships that he had seen in military formation. So that in itself would be alarming to those in charge.
Right, and he reported to the military in 1951, way before he was an astronaut, that he was flying in our top jets over East and West Germany, and on the east side of Germany, we should say, there was MiGs, and they both looked up and saw a flotilla of vehicles. And I always say, you know, what did they do when he came back and reported a flotilla of UFOs flying, you know, over the border of East and West Germany, higher than they could go at that time? You know, did they put him in a straitjacket? No, they made him an astronaut. That just means to me that there are levels of intelligence in our military that know that extraterrestrials exist. Buzz Aldrin was another person who's now toned down his speech, but he said from the time pretty much they went into orbit to the time they got to the moon, they were followed by lights.
Right. You see, that's the kind of thing I think we really should be celebrating, the presence of this greater technology. But we like to show off how smart we are. We can do this, but it's primitive. It's like baby steps compared to like Olympic runners, you know? So
at least it's happening. At least it's happening.
It's happening, but it's still frustrating. You know, it's still like, let's share, let's open the files. This is what this is what Making Contact is all about. This is what our work has been about, exposing people to a greater cosmology, and it's beyond the cosmology of fossil fuels. So talk about that, JJ. Talk about the bigger cosmology and the cosmic relations that we have out there.
It's very clear that after 75 years of looking at documentation supporting more than 82 different species on a horizon, that we need a new cosmology. And that cosmology, Desiree and I have pointed out in a book called The Keys of Enoch, that some of you have read, others have seen illustrated by some of our video reports. But essentially, we as a humanity, Homo sapien, are just beginning to realize there are others that look like us, more advanced in technology, capable of interpenetrating our solar system, and even beyond these cosmic others, there are what you call extraterrestrial levels and ultra-terrestrial levels that are even more, should we say, exotic, that do not need fossil fuels, that simply use pure light for navigation purposes. So we're really graduating now to a new type of technology, a non-fossil fuel technology that will make use of hydrogen
Yeah.
and what later will be called zero-point energy, something that our mutual friend Hal Puthoff from Stanford Research Institute and others behind the scenes working with the American Air Force, like Robert Foreword, have championed for more than 35 years.
Yeah, it's been very difficult to really be able to get beyond. Also, like you're saying about the baby steps, we believe the next technology really will be hydrogen. Of course, electric is always being used, but hydrogen could generate that. But then you have to go into what, like Bob Lazar was talking about, shifting the elements, like element 115, which some people say was just a name he gave, that it's really not what that is, because now we've achieved element 115. But what about, we think it's more electromagnetic frequencies that are able to alter the gravitational waves by being able to then neutralize gravity.
We're still using Newtonian science when we have quantum physics that we're still learning about. But when we develop the practicality of quantum physics, I think we'll be able to have superpositions, to realize entanglement, to not collapse the wave function, to bend time and space. So this is a first step. I'm agreeing with you, Desiree. This is a moment in commercial history, but it is maybe the beginning of us being a spacefaring planet, which is kind of good. We went to the moon and didn't go back for 40 years, 50 years. So this is a new revolution. And it's just odd that it's coinciding with this big disclosure bundle that's just been released. So I think it is a good time.
Right, let's talk about that. There was 144 reports, and I thought that was an interesting number.
Because the gematria of 144
is 12.
Is in the 12. Ancient Hebrew scripture and the Mayan text as a significant number of contact with the other worlds.
So it's just interesting, but of course, there only one could be explained. But now those reports were not given to the public. They were only given to, we'll say, the intelligence committees who are examining them and seeing what can come out to the public. And of course, the public, I believe, had just a 9-page summary report.
Well, go ahead. Well, I just want to say, in a recent interview with Elizondo, he talked about a 23-minute film. Have you heard about this? Which is high definition, which will really blow people's minds what they see in this film. And it's not released yet.
Yeah. When does he think it's going to be released? That's the whole question.
Well, members of the Senate Intelligence Committee have already seen this, but so what do you say?
Years ago, there was film that was made on the extraterrestrial retrievals here in the Roswell, New Mexico area. One of my colleagues was there in a military tent where pictures were taken and actual film was made of the reaction of American military personnel exposed for the first time to the alien bodies. Had similar faces to the humans, much shorter, approximately 1.5 meters in height, and also showing no sex organs as a result of the autopsy that was done afterwards. But essentially the reaction was one of overwhelming amazement, and the authorities in charge felt that this was too early to release this information, so it's taken 75 years to catch up with our next
civilian astronaut.
But I think it's cool. They got their astronaut pins, and again, it was only suborbital, only about 3 minutes. And but as more and more people do this, how can you deny that others can't do it? Or the biggest argument is that they can't come from so far away. You said we went to the moon. One of the reasons maybe we didn't go back to the moon, as many people argue now who are in the ufology field, is that we found that there were bases on the moon. The moon was already occupied, and they didn't want us there. So it seems that we have been, we say, quarantined for a long time, but we now think that this is shifting. Now, the Keys of Enoch have said that 64 areas of science will take a quantum leap. We think the technology used for Virgin Galactic, ultimately for Elon Musk's orbital flights, is all part of this new technology that we've been fed by kind of consciousness awakening, all of us, to be able to take that quantum leap and meet our cosmic brothers and sisters in space. And hopefully they'll let us in.
Right, so maybe you're right. We are approaching it from really two different levels. We're approaching from the quantum EP, UFO, UAP level of really advanced technology, and then the kind of baby steps as we kind of bring the general public along into what's possible. So I think that's the importance of this discussion today, is how we're going to bridge those two populations and have them awaken to what our real potential is.
And if you think about it, Alan, like even if young kids nowadays see this and they see a whole bunch of people going up in Virgin Galactic or Blue Origin and all this and that, then you're also going to be able to start saying, oh, I want to go up into space. And then when ETs come down, and we think people should use discernment, but they'll be more excited into going up into space and be more open to that and not be so fearful. Because it's a strange thing. I mean, Dr. Tech and I have all seen kind of light ships, and it's really overwhelming to see that, as much as you understand it. So the
just think of the time we were in Sedona, Desiree, and we saw the Starlink, and that was so fascinating. The Elon Musk Starlink, these strings of lights in the sky that were just
But what's amazing also, Alan, is the fact that we also, when we were up at Chatsworth at the Disclosure Fest and doing a meditation, that we saw everyone who was there at this CE5 connection, also with ourselves. We had just done the meditation with you and with Mark Sims, saw a light that flew literally over our left and then all of a sudden blinked out. If you send me that, I'll insert it into the final film. It's amazing.
Thank you.
People are starting to see this. I don't believe you should do CE5s all the time, because you can't call them in every single day. But when you have the right intention, the right energy, the right people, these things can materialize.
So I'd like to put this into historic context, because one of the first pioneers in outer space was astronaut Gordy Cooper. I'm quoting from his book called Leap of Faith. He writes, the first American president to answer a question at an official press conference about UFOs following a rash of public sightings, President Harry Truman said on the 4th of April, 1950, quote, I can assure you that flying saucers, given that they exist, are not constructed by any power on Earth, end of quote. So we are catching up to what Gordy Cooper, who was beyond suborbital experiences in outer space, brought back. We could not tell the public, but he told me and Desiree, as we worked together on another book, that we have to go through an orientation period. And for some, it's taken 50 to 75 years of 3 generations to have, as it were, the wherewithal to accept the fact that what contact will mean will be that we will change our energy supply concepts altogether. We will move off of fossil fuels directly. We'll be able to mine minerals in outer space and have a repository of renewable resources and newly abundant mineral resources we've never used before. We're building space cities, and we'll develop very quickly into a space-borne society. Space civilization will be able to build inexpensively space platform realities and micro cities. So I'm excited, in spite of the fact that the political side, the equation has kept a secret for so many years, is going to come out thanks to you and others like ourselves who've been pushing the envelope and have talked to the real people at the top.
Well, I'm really happy you wanted to do this today, because I think you're right. Desiree really pushed for this little online conference, what we're doing, because this is a moment in history. There's a convergence of, yes, the disclosure of the anniversary of Roswell, the moon landing. There's a new phase, and it's like a new cycle we're entering now. So thank you both for kind of talking about this moment in time that we're about to enter a new phase of history. And this is where we're at. And I think Richard Branson is a visionary, and, I wish he would also know about the other technologies that the government has been hiding for 75 years.
Some of their inner motivation.
Yes, to this point, it's been hardware oriented. Now we're going to go into consciousness, which is the missing part of the puzzle. Exo-consciousness is the ability to put ourselves into outer space, looking back at this blue-green planet, involving ourselves with higher intelligence, and opening the door to a reevaluation of life. And so it's very important that we see the overall picture.
No, I think it's good. Thank you, guys. But what
Okay, well, thanks for
conclusions?
having us.
Well, wait,
Well-
but before you go, what do we want to leave the audience with before, what ideas can we plant in their minds about where we all can go collectively together?
Well, I think it's very important that this happened today, whether it beats out the blue origin or not. The fact is that we are starting to see ourselves as space kind.
Cosmic
Right.
origin. This is the
Right.
experiment of finding our cosmic origin. This is the beginning where we begin to, should we say, pilot new areas of information that have been overlooked. This is the time of government disclosure, but also human enclosure of finding and discovering who we really are as multidimensional beings. We have to tune our frequency into a whole new level of engagement. I feel very soon we will have evidence that the cosmic others, the cosmic cultures, are on our doorstep, and this will require more than technology. It will require a better understanding of our higher mental capabilities. Our spiritual philosophies will change somewhat. Our physical sciences will change dramatically. Our economics will be rather passé because we will have an abundance of free materials. The whole equation of life is going to change from humankind to space kind. And that's the birth of a new day. This is the day of a new birth for all of us.
Yeah, no, I think it is the birth of a new day, or at least the conception. Maybe not the birth, but we're conceiving the possibility that we are a space-faring race, that space is not out there. It's not beyond our reach. It is a part of who we are as we evolve as a civilization. So that's why I think today is important, and how it's converging with everything else that we've been talking about for the last 3 months, since the publication, of course, of, can we just do a little plug for
Making Contact? We're so excited to be part of that. We're chapter 3 in a fabulous book. And really, it is something that everyone should read, from Jeff Bezos to Richard Branson to the president.
Because it gives today a perspective on where we can go, where we've been, and how to integrate the world population into a bigger reality. So this is why the subtitle is Preparing for the New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence.
And Alan, there's one other very important factor that's been left out. The whole area of truth and consequences sits on top of a labyrinthine system that goes under the earth into Mexico, used by the indigenous for their tribal meetings. So it's an holy area that was historically recognized as a meeting ground for the star nations from above. So it's not just a piece of sand in the desert that was rapidly developed by Branson and company. No, this is a historic meeting place for the indigenous cultures, and we need to listen to their story of history if we are to prepare ourselves for the eventual graduation of humankind to planetary society.
The irony of the name Truth and Consequences is the result of, if disclosure is not brought forward, if the truth is not brought forward, there will be consequences. And that's, no, it's true.
Perfect. That's perfect. I love that, Alan.
That's why truth or consequences is the key to disclosure at this moment. So
thank you so much for the opportunity to share it.
And Alan, good luck with your next book. We're on a run.
Yes. Okay. We'll be in touch. I will see you in New York. We'll do more of these. This is Alan Steinfeld for New Realities, along with Dr. JJ Desiree Hurtak. And this has been a report on the, what would you call it? The galactic, Virgin Galactic space launch.
Yes. And that we would call the first initial thrust of public disclosure into space.
Right. That we are cosmic citizens, as JJ would say. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.